let's go over an example of the final project and what your answers might sound like. So to get the information for the present level of academic and functional performance, you should have observed a student and have access to an evaluation report, a reevaluation report, or a previous IEP. The present level of academic and functional performance, different school districts do this in different ways. So you're going to do what your school district requires. For some IEP programs, you'll see that they have an present level of academic and functional performance at the very beginning of the IEP, and it will be quite lengthy. For other IEPs, there will be present level performances on individual pages based on topics. So anyway, do it as your school district requires. But we're going to just put in our present level a couple of the things that you definitely want to see in a present level performance. So you want a little overview of the student. Jack is a 12th grader at school. He meets criteria for special education services under the category of autism spectrum disorder. You definitely want to take a strengths-based approach, and you notice sometimes in present levels there'll be headers or things that will help you to organize the information. You see this particular student did write out strengths in all capitals. And Jack has strengths in math and science and is currently receiving a grade of B in these subjects. He's on the baseball team at school and says art's his favorite class, especially painting. In this section, you want to include strengths that you can build on, things that the student's motivated by. So you shouldn't be hearing here, Jack's cute, Jack's sweet. You really want to put some things here that are meaningful and linked to academics and that you can build on in your plan. When you look at the present levels, you can get this information, as I said, from evaluation reports, reevaluation reports, assessments, observations, previous IEPs. So here we see that the teacher has noted when a teacher gives him a deadline or multiple tasks to complete, Jack will socially isolate himself or when pushed to remain with the rest of the class, become verbally aggressive, including swearing and threatening others. Physically and verbally, he expresses anxiety to meet deadlines or complete tasks. He also will become physically aggressive towards staff and students, including kicking and throwing items when he becomes overwhelmed with the sensory environment. Academically, results from his last 3-year evals suggest that Jack tests significantly below grade level peers in reading comprehension. So you want to have some present level information. It should be based on assessment data, observations, and whenever possible, try to include the current level of the student's engagement in those activities. Parental concern should always be, because the parent is part of the team, included. And according to his parents, Jack exhibits similar aggressive behaviors at home. They report that if he's overwhelmed with tasks, he cannot complete in a timely manner. He'll throw objects or run out of the home. Now, if it's autism spectrum disorder, that's what qualified them, and you have to pull out and include in present levels the communication, the socialization, and the behaviors. In the area of communication, Jack does not effectively communicate his needs and frustrations. He's not able to articulate his emotions when his anxiety level is high. Under behaviors, Jack has difficulty with self-regulation when frustrated. He has tactile needs, such as putting objects in his mouth. And socially, his aggressive behaviors impacting social interaction, and peers are avoiding him when he becomes upset. He's socially immature for his age, preferring some special topics that peers his age do not share, for example, Sesame Street. And then the impact statement. Make sure that you're talking about how the disability, the characteristics of the disability are having an impact on access to general education curriculum and the general education environment. So Jack's aggressive verbal and physical behavior in school is impacting his progress in the general education curriculum in several ways. It impacts his peers' relationships, and peers do not want to participate in group work or activities with him. It also affects his ability to complete assignments and tests. From your present levels, you will identify educational needs. Everything must be linked. So here we see that Jack needs to increase his self-regulation skills, and he needs to learn how to break complex tasks into smaller, manageable steps so he's not so frustrated. Your need statements will be directly linked to the goals and the objectives. Everything has to be connected. So here we see a goal written with a direction, a skill, and the present and ending level of performance included. Jack will increase his self-regulation skills from demonstrating frustration through behavior such as hitting and kicking. 2, engaging in self-regulation, deep breathing, or talking to adult strategies 80% of the time. So, in some school districts, they will have different ways to write goals. This is just a framework to start to learn to write goals. You're going to use the strategies that your school districts require. Your IEP objectives are those intermediate steps to get to the goal. Objectives are not required federally, but in Minnesota and other states, IEP objectives are required. So your IEP should be linked to the goal. So in your IEP objectives, you want conditions, and you definitely want the mastery criteria and evaluation components. So here we see, when frustrated, Jack will talk to an adult to express his needs, and 80% of occasions is measured by the special education staff. When frustrated is the condition. The behavior is talk to an adult to express his needs. 80% of occasions is the mastery criteria, and the evaluation component is measured by special education staff. Let's hear the second one. With a prompt, Jack will engage in a self-regulation strategy, deep breathing, and 4 out of 5 frustrating occasions is measured by special education staff. So we've learned about comprehensive autism planning system, and that comprehensive autism planning system says you really need to plan for the characteristics of autism, which include communication, socialization, and behaviors. So I've asked you to call out some of the strategies that you will have in your lesson focused on those characteristics of autism. So communication, this student during a social skills lesson is going to receptively make sure that students know that they need to listen to teachers' lessons during the social skills class. That's receptive communication. Expressively, the student's going to verbally communicate their emotions. So they need to be able to say, I need a break, help, and other target vocabulary. And students may utilize low-tech assistive technology in the form of a visual 5-point scale to express level of frustration during this social skills lesson. And the target vocabulary for this lesson will include self-regulation, emotions such as frustration, anxiety, calm, need a break, help, and deep breathing. Your target vocabulary is the vocabulary you want your students to learn through these lessons, and these will need to be explained. Let's then talk about the social strategy this student has decided to put into their lesson for this student. The student's going to have to work with peers for social interaction while learning their self-regulation strategies. The student's going to need to learn some perspective-taking skills through discussion with peers after watching video modeling in situations of frustrating activities. And for this lesson, the student's going to work with partners to recognize emotions and identifying feelings. Sensory strategies. You want to have some sensory strategies planned for your lesson and to meet the needs of your students. And so the students are going to learn sensory strategies for self-regulation in this particular lesson that focuses on deep breathing. And more sensory strategies will be introduced in future lessons such as Me Moves and Yoga Calm. Additionally, the lights are going to be lowered to meet the needs of students with visual sensitivity, and voice volumes will be kept low to meet the needs of students with auditory sensitivities. All right, so let's get into the lesson then. So in this particular instructional plan, the lesson is going to take place during social skills class in the afternoon in a self-contained special education classroom at a high school. And the title of the lesson is Learning How to Use Self-Regulation Strategies. And you see here they're going to use some video modeling. Now, you need to determine where the lesson falls in a learning segment. So this particular lesson will be lesson 4 out of 5 lessons. And the first lesson will be identifying feeling emotions. The second will learn the rationale for why self-regulation is important. It can be helpful. The third will be learning the 5-point scale to express feelings and emotions. And this will be lesson 4, learning how to use self-regulation strategies, deep breathing. Lesson 5 will be learning how to request the need for self-regulation strategy to a familiar adult. The primary learning target for this lesson is when feeling frustrated, students will use a self-regulation strategy to manage behaviors. So let's talk about the actual lesson. So your opening, you want to engage the students, connect to prior learning, and communicate the learning goals and expectations. This student's provide a teacher script. In our last lessons, we talked about why self-regulation is important, identified feelings and emotions, and learned how to utilize the 5-point scale. Let's review the previous lessons by watching 2 short video clips and identifying the person in the video's emotions. And they'll start with a partner activity where they show a video clip where Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory is calm. And these video clips were picked because the students has interest in The Big Bang Theory. And the students will then, in a partner activity, identify the emotion that's demonstrated working with the partner. Then there'll be an independent activity. The second clip, there'll be a video where Sheldon's angry, and the students will need to individually identify the emotion that's demonstrated. Then, after individually identifying the emotion, they'll quickly get into a small group and discuss that answer that they came up with during the independent activity. Going on, the teacher will then introduce the new learning. Today we'll be learning how to self-regulate. Let's read our learning goal written on the whiteboard in the front of the room out loud together. I can self-regulate and take deep breaths when I feel frustrated. So it's very clear to the students. They've been given that visual support about what they're going to learn. Then you get into the core presentation of the instruction. And this is where you teach, model the new skill and the concept. And you want to use multiple strategies and scaffold learning. The student's going to use direct instruction and teach deep breathing. They're going to explain deep breathing and the benefits of deep breathing. Then the teacher's going to use some modeling where they model those deep breathing using a count to 5 strategy. The teacher will have the students identify how they currently feel on the 5-point scale, and then they'll practice and try that deep breathing using a count to 5 strategy. The students will then have them identify how they feel on the 5-point scale after using that count to 5 strategy. The teacher will then, because she's using multiple strategies, use video modeling and watch a video of deep breathing. Then they'll model some additional breathing techniques using a breathing ball, figure 8, blow out the candles, and ask the students if they feel breathing would have helped the student in the video. During that guided practice, they're going to practice each of those techniques, using the breathing ball, using a figure 8 strategy, blowing out candles. And the teacher is going to walk around the room and check for student understanding and provide feedback as needed. If the students need cueing or prompting, they're going to be cued through visual prompting and proximity. And the teacher is going to ask the students how they feel using the 5-point scale or using an emotion word after trying each strategy. And the students will then be asked to choose the strategy they felt worked best for them. And then the teacher will ask the students to demonstrate their preferred strategy and will reinforce the students through verbal praise or earning a token for a token economy system during this time. Then we move into independent practice. So during independent practice, the teacher is going to say, after rating yourself before and after using the deep breathing strategies on the 5-point scale, did you find that you felt differently? Is deep breathing something that you would want to use when you become frustrated in situations in the future? If it is, take out your notebook and write it down on your sensory diet strategy page. So this teacher is using a sensory diet intervention strategies where she's having them identify strategies that work for them and keep a log on that so that they know what works for them. And for closure. So for closure, you want to review key concepts and assess learning. So here's the teacher script. Today we learned different ways to use a deep breathing strategy. Who can show us one way we learned? Who can show us another? Who can tell me a frustrating situation that this strategy might help to calm you down? Next time you come to social skills class, we're going to learn another way to deal with frustration. So there's the closure. Now you want to make sure that there's some generalization planned for. So the teacher script for the generalization is, when outside of class might you be able to use a breathing strategy like this one to get calm? And so they will brainstorm some ideas when outside of class they might be able to use this strategy. And the students will be reminded and encouraged to use this strategy as well as others they learn when they become frustrated, mad, or anxious in or outside of class. And the staff will continue to practice with them in other classes as well as with other people to use the strategy when they need it. The teacher will also communicate the strategy with families so the students will transfer these skills to the home environment. And then data collection. You're going to need to write up a data collection sheet. Your data collection sheet should have your goal and objectives on it and some directions. So here the directions are: write the name, date of each observation, provide observer initials, observe the behavior when the student feels frustrated, note the frustrating situation, circle yes or no if they engage in the self-regulation strategy or talks to an adult, and after 5 occasions, note if the objective of 2 yeses out of 5 were met. So you see the place for date, the observer's initials, what the frustration situation was, did they use deep breathing? Yes or no. Any comments? Did they talk to an adult? Yes or no. Any comments? And in the last column, how many yes out of 5 did they get? And was 2 out of 5 that criteria met? You'll then be asked to do an evidence-based fact sheet. For your fact sheet, you will use the resource Evidence-Based Practices for Children, Youth, and Young Adults with Autism Spectrum Disorder. This resource is provided online. In the back of this resource are fact sheets. The fact sheets are in alphabetical order, and you would look at the fact sheets to answer the questions. You'll notice that the fact sheets have a brief description, qualifying evidence, the ages, the outcomes, and you should read through the research studies that have provided the evidence base for this. Also, at the very end of it will be the suggested citation. The first thing the fact sheet asks you for is the description of the evidence-based practice. This information can come from the brief description. You should paraphrase and not copy and paste directly from the resource that's provided. The next question asks, description of who the evidence-based practice is promoted is appropriate and effective for. On the fact sheet, you will see that the ages and the outcomes or the skills that this has been utilized with are noted. Here you'll see that the student took that information and said, self-management shown to be effective with learners with autism spectrum disorder in preschool to high school, and it addresses social, communication, behavior, play, school readiness, academic, and vocational skills. They then asked description of the evidence attesting to the practice's validity, effectiveness. Here you see they got the information straight from the fact sheet. There was 10 single case design studies. Here we see the qualifying evidence, and what you should do is read through the research studies to get a feel for the evidence that led to this being considered an evidence-based practice in the field of autism. Then I ask you to describe how the evidence-based practice might be implemented in a student's current educational program, and this is for you to decide how this strategy could be used and how you utilize it in your lesson. So self-management could be implemented to a student's daily educational program by using the learned skills in different environments and situations throughout the day. The reference will come directly from that publication. You see here the suggested citation. After the fact sheet and after everyone has done their demonstration, so your demonstration should be a 5-minute presentation of your lesson, and there are some examples online. So after you've been able to look at everybody else's demonstration, I want you to think about comparing and contrasting. Did I pick the right intervention? One challenge with learning interventions is we tend to want to use that intervention over and over again without really paying attention to maybe this isn't just because I know how to write a social story or a social narrative. Is this really the best strategy? You want to make sure that you're comparing and contrasting methods. So pick a second method. So the second choice for this student would be social skills training. The choice would benefit this student because social skills training involves individual or group instruction that's designed to teach Jack to appropriately interact with others when he's feeling frustrated. And so then this student has summarized a second research method that could be used for this student for the challenge that he has. You'll then compare and contrast the methods. So you'll talk about how your method that you chose initially, the self-management, self-regulation, and social skills groups are similar and how they're different. And then you'll select the method that you think is going to best meet your student's need and provide the rationale. And so the method chosen for this student was self-regulation, which is the one they started with. And the reason they'd use that method is because it fits into one of the need statements and goals more appropriately than social skills training. And this student does not have self-regulation skills, and it's affecting his ability in the general education environment. Self-regulation also gives them many choices of how to self-regulate, and there's a lot of student choice in this method. And so they went on to explain a little bit more about that. All right, so that's the assignment. If you need any help, I am available for office hours, or you can always pick up the phone and give me a call.